Hello comparison test viewers, and welcome back to another All Cars Everyday video. You guys voted in the community tab on what comparison test you wanted to see this week, so here I am standing with the 2020 Ford Expedition. It's the newest of the three models that I have gathered here today, but before we get into it, we need to check out the other two competitors. This is the 2020 Chevy Suburban, this generation of which came out in 2015. Same goes for this 2020 GMC Yukon XL, which is nearly a carbon copy of the Chevy Suburban. I'm comparing these trucks on a scale from 1 to 5 in 7 different categories for a possible total of 35 points per truck at the end of the video. Furthermore, I'm comparing these trucks at the upper $60,000 price point, which means I'm comparing specific trims of each truck, and I won't be adding any options to any of them except for the four-wheel drive systems. More specifically, I'm comparing the Yukon XL Denali to the Suburban Premier and the Ford Expedition Limited Max. With that out of the way, let's look at our first category, which is value. The Chevy Suburban Premier with the 6.2-liter engine and four-wheel drive has an MSRP of $74,025. On the outside, there are 20-inch polished alloy wheels and roof-mounted side rails. The side mirrors dim automatically when they detect severe light from behind, and they are also heated to prevent fog buildup. The windshield wipers can sense when it's raining to automatically turn on, and the tailgate is powered with the hands-free feature where you kick a foot under the rear bumper to open it. The lighting on the Suburban includes high-intensity headlights, fog lights, and daytime running lights. Finally, there's keyless open and remote start standard. Inside, the Suburban has perforated leather seating. The driver's seat has a 2-position memory function and is power adjustable 10 ways. The passenger seat gets 6 ways powered. Both front seats are heated and ventilated. The steering wheel and pedals are power adjustable too, so every possible driver can get comfortable in this truck. The second row seats are buckets in the Premier trim, and they are power adjustable and heated as well. The third row of seats are power folding in a 60-40 split. Technology in the Suburban is plentiful, with an 8-inch screen in the dashboard featuring Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and a navigation system. There's also voice activation for the Bluetooth and Sirius XM. These music functions play through a premium Bose 10-speaker surround sound audio system. In the gauge cluster, there's another screen that's 4.2 inches in diameter. It features key driving information like trip distance, fuel economy, and vehicle diagnostics. To the left and right of it are an analog tachometer and speedometer. Convenience features on the Premier include an automatically dimming rearview mirror, a 4G LTE Wi-Fi connection, and express windows for the first 2 rows. It also has push-button start, a tri-zone automatic climate control, a universal home remote, and wireless cell phone charging. Speaking of charging, the Suburban has plenty of places to do this if your phone needs to be plugged in to charge, with a 110-volt outlet, 4 traditional 12-volt outlets, and plenty of USB ports. Finally, the Suburban has Chevy Connected Access, which is an app that can be installed on a smart device that connects the truck to owners remotely. They can start, lock, unlock, and track the vehicle from their phone, but it's a subscription service like another manufacturer's. It's a lot more expensive than the Ford, which we will get to next. The features are pretty similar, and I know you can get a cheaper Suburban Premier with the 5.3-liter engine. Either way you cut it though, the Suburban can't compete with the Expedition here, so we'll give it a 4.2 for value. The Ford Expedition Limited Max with the four-wheel drive system added totals $69,495. On the outside of the biggest Ford, there are 20-inch tarnished dark painted wheels and a hands-free powered liftgate that opens if you swipe a foot under the rear bumper. The rear glass is also able to fold open manually like the other trucks here. The windshield wipers can sense rain and turn on, and the side mirrors are both heated and power folding. At the bottom of the Ford, there are powered running boards for easy ingress, and up top there are roof rack side rails. At the back, there's a Class 4 trailer hitch, and the taillights are LED units. There are DRLs by the halogen headlights and fog lights, and an intelligent access system that allows the owner to enter and exit the vehicle without touching the key to lock or unlock the Expedition. Inside the Ford, there is standard perforated leather like the other trucks. Both front seats are 10-way power adjustable with lumbar support and are heated and ventilated. The Ford retains a second row bench seat which folds in 40-20-40 sections. The bench is heated as well, and they have a power tip and slide function to them. The rear seat is power folding and power reclining, as well as having power folding headrests. Like in the Suburban, the driver's seat has a memory function that includes the outside mirror position and power adjustable pedals and steering column. However, the Expedition also has a heated steering wheel in this trim. The technology is very similar though, as the screen in the dashboard is also 8 inches in diagonal. It has Wi-Fi, Sync 3 with enhanced voice recognition, Sirius XM, and navigation. Like the other 2 trucks, it features Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as well. Where it differs from the Suburban is in the gauge cluster, which has another 8-inch screen in the middle of the instruments. It does mostly the same thing thing as the one in the Chevy, but is bigger and easier to read. Not to be outdone by Chevy, the Ford has a Bang & Olufsen premium audio system with 12 speakers. Convenience features are pretty close to the Suburban as well, with express windows in the first 2 rows, tri-zone automatic climate control, an auto-dimming rearview mirror, and wireless charging. Also included is a universal garage door opener, push-button start, and an app that connects the vehicle to the owner's smartphone like I explained earlier. Finally, there are 4 traditional 12 volts, a 110 volt outlet, and 6 smart charging USB ports dotted in the interior. The truck has a better audio system, gauge cluster, power folding mirrors and running boards, and more variety in the power folding of the rear seats. In addition to that, the Ford is also over $4,000 cheaper than the Chevy. It's getting a 4.8 out of 5 for value. The Yukon XL Denali 4-wheel drive starts at $74,795. It has identical features to the Chevy outside with 20-inch machined alloy wheels, a hands-free power liftgate, heated auto-dimming mirrors, and rain-sensing wipers. It has roof rails, remote start, and keyless entry as well. The lights too are identical in terms of features, with DRLs, fog lights, and HID headlights. The inside has the exact same features as well, save a few exceptions. The only differences inside are that the Denali has a bigger driver information center in the gauge cluster at 8 inches, matching the Ford, and the head-up display. For those of you who don't know what that is, think of it as a virtual projection onto the bottom of the windshield that displays either vehicle information like speed, entertainment functions, or navigation. It just makes it easier to access necessary info without having to take your eyes too far off the road. The head-up display and better gauge cluster alone are worth more than $700 by themselves, so in a somewhat strange twist of events, the Yukon XL at this trim level is a better value proposition than the comparable Chevy. Since the Chevy managed a 4.2, I'll give it a 4.3. In this category, I look at the active safety technology that each truck has to offer, as well as their crash test results. The IIHS hasn't done their usual battery of tests on these trucks, so we will instead go with the Nhtsa Ratings. The Expedition received a 5-star rating from the company, and the GM twins got 4 stars. The Suburban comes standard with automatic emergency braking, forward collision alert, lane keeping assist with departure warning, auto high beams, blind spot alert, trailer sway control, and rear cross traffic alert. There's a safety alert seat that vibrates for some of these systems, but you can turn that off. There's also front and rear parking assistance, which is particularly useful on an SUV this large, and a teen driver system that limits speed, music volume, and forces seatbelt usage. The Yukon XL Denali has identical features. These 2 trucks are going to get a 4.5 for having lots of standard active safety, but ranking slightly lower than the Ford in Nhtsa testing. The Expedition is a blind spot information system with cross traffic alert, auto high beams, pre-collision assist with automatic emergency braking, trailer tow monitoring, and a forward and reverse sensing system. The Expedition will get the same score as the GM trucks because although it performed better in passive tests, it was missing some lane keeping prevention measures the other 2 had. The Suburban I am testing has the optional 6.2-liter V8 to try and align the Suburban with the Expedition and Yukon Denali. It makes 420 horsepower and 460 pound-feet of torque. It's got cylinder deactivation that shuts down half of the V8 cylinders if conditions are appropriate. This engine routes power through a 10-speed automatic transmission to either the rear wheels or all 4 wheels, depending on if the driver has the truck in 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, or auto. It's also got a limited slip rear differential and a hitch with a 2-inch trailering receiver out back. In total, the powertrain is good for a 5.7 second 0 to 60 run. The Yukon Denali has the exact same powertrain, which results in the same performance times. The Ford switches things up with a 3.5-liter EcoBoost V6, which comes with twin turbos, 375 horsepower, and 470 pound-feet of torque. It uses a similar 10-speed automatic and control track 4-wheel drive with low gearing. Though it's got quite the torque punch, it can't match the horsepower ratings of the naturally aspirated V8s, so it needs 6.2 seconds to reach 60 miles per hour. Though it's advanced in terms of technology, the twin-turbo V6 has questionable reliability next to the 6.2s, and it can't motivate the Expedition quite as well as the other trucks are able to. However, the V6 stomps on the base 5.3-liter V8s in the Yukon SLT and other Suburbans, at least in terms of performance. Unfortunately for Ford, I'm not comparing the 5.3s this time around. This is going to be a 4.5 for both GM trucks and a 4 for the Ford. The Suburban and Yukon get 14 in the city and 20 in the highway for a combined 16 miles per gallon. This category is why Ford used the V6, as it beats those ratings by a margin with 16 in the city and 21 on the highway for a combined 21. Sometimes turbo engines perform better in EPA testing than the real world though, so if you're buying with fuel economy in mind, that's going to be something to look into. A heavy foot in the Ford will probably produce similar numbers to the GM trucks. A smaller engine working harder isn't as efficient as a big engine barely stretching its legs. Either way, the Ford gets a 3.3 for fuel economy and the GM trucks get a 3. I get this statistic from Consumer Reports, which uses historical data to rate each truck on a scale from much worse than average to much better than average, with average, of course, falling in the middle. The GM Twins are rated as average, and the Ford is rated better than average. I assign a half point to each step up or down in these ratings, so that means the Ford gets a 4.5 and the GM Twins get a 4. This is the only subjective category I rate, so your taste could differ from mine. If that's the case, feel free to put your own ratings in for each truck. The fronts of each truck are actually pretty similar. There's little variation in headlight design. I like the front of the Expedition the best, as it's the classiest, followed closely by the Suburban and then the Yukon. At the rear, the Yukon and Suburban are almost undistinguishable, but it's a conservative yet classic GM truck design. Of these two, the GMC is slightly ahead, as the taillight design adds at least some flair to the back. The Ford wins the rear angle too, though, as it takes a bigger step in the styling department, but again, all three are really close in this category. I will say I wish the Expedition's taillights were about 80% as big as they are right now. They look a little bit cartoonish to me. Inside, the tables turn a little bit. I think the Yukon and Suburban have more sophisticated interiors, or at least more sophisticated appearing interiors. The Expedition has huge vents and blocky shapes, which I suppose are supposed to convey masculinity or something of the sort. However, I much prefer the more car-like interiors of the GM Twins. The Ford is still getting a 4 in this category, and the GM Twins are getting a 3.8. This category is to evaluate how well each SUV can haul people and their stuff, and other miscellaneous features that are worth comparing. The Suburban seats 7 in the Premier configuration, as does the Yukon in Denali guise. The second row bench is ditched for 2 bucket seats as mentioned. The Chevy can tow 7,900 pounds and has a payload of 1,692 pounds. Behind the third row, it can stow 39.3 cubic feet of cargo. With the third row down, there is 76.7 cubic feet, and that expands even more to 121.7 with both the third and second rows down. The Yukon XL tows the same 7,900, but has a slightly smaller 1,535 pound payload rating. It's got the same amount of storage space out back as well. The Expedition seats 8, as it retains a second row bench. It tows 6,600 pounds and can hold a maximum of 1,756 pounds. Behind the third row, there's 34.3 cubes, behind the second, there is 73.3, and behind the first, there are 121.5. The Ford is pretty evenly matched with cargo space, but can't match the towing capacity of the Chevy and GMC. However, it does retain one extra seat versus those two. The Expedition feels the roomiest inside, but has less headroom than the GM trucks in the third row. However, my 5'10" frame didn't make it so that my head was anywhere near the ceiling. In this category, the Ford will get a 4.3, and the GMs will get a 4.4. Here are the final points for each truck. As you can see, the Ford edged out the GM Twins by about a point. I think it's probably a better all-around truck, and it certainly poses the best value proposition. However, the big burly 6.2s in the GM trucks won't be around for long, and in their final stage, I think they're the superior option versus the twin-turbo V6. Between the GM trucks, I think the Suburban is a better option at the lower trim levels, but at the highest trims, the GMC is the way to go. I can't wait for the GM redesign though, as these trucks haven't been touched since 2015. I expect they'll put up a huge fight the next time I get these two in the ring with the Ford. Thanks for watching.